Rude of me to just walk past. What's good, people? Hope you guys are all good. It's another vlog, another Fuji XT4 vlog. This one I don't think is going to be anything special. I just want to make it nice, quick, short and sweet. Basically, since I got this camera, my personal one, with the 16-55 F2.8, the linear motor with the weather sealing, there's been firmware updates for this camera. It's still running on version 1.00. Now they've had versions 1.01, 1.02 and the latest one, which is 1.03, and I'll put it on the screen so you guys can see it. But the 1.03 says minor, but I figured some people, and especially Fuji rumors and also some of the other creators, have actually seen that this latest firmware update has fixed the auto exposure stepping issue that you get with the XT4. So right now I've got the ND filter on it. So what I'm going to do, as I'm running version 1.0, I'm going to take off the ND filter and we're going to go into like auto ISO as well as auto aperture switching in terms of shutter speed and aperture priority, and see how does the auto stepping work. Now of course I've picked the gloomiest day where it's not really that sunny to kind of see it, but I think there will be enough natural light outdoors to see the difference in between and see how it behaves. So I'm going to take off the ND filter and then we'll just basically take it from there and see how does it behave when it comes to the auto stepping, when it comes to the exposure, right, on this version, which you're going to see. And then I'm going to go back in, update it to the latest version, then we can kind of see it before and after in terms of how it behaves. So in a way it's good that it's dark and gloomy. There's not that much exposure change, so it should be easier to see the difference as we go through. Yeah man, that's about it. Let's kind of switch up. All right, let me off screw the ND. Oh, it's gonna blow out. It's gonna blow out still. Ooh, overexposed. Now ND filter is off. I'm shooting at 4K 24 frames a second at 400 megabits, 10-bit internal with the all-out compression. Memory card is good enough to be able to do that. And basically the shutter speed is locked at 1/48th and the ISO is locked at the base 160. So whatever you're going to be seeing happening is going to be with the aperture changing between obviously maximum at f/22 down to the f/2.8 that it's in. So yeah, we're seeing the exposure. This is now going up to f/22, then back down to me, and you should be seeing that stepping, you know, that everyone talks about when it comes to the aperture exposure stepping. I will obviously lock the aperture again and switch it to the ISO to see how the ISO behaves in that sense. But this is all this vlog is. There isn't anything necessarily special, but I really wanted to get it done and I wanted to get the firmware update in. But before I did it, I wanted to actually see, you know, is it an improvement enough, or is it enough of a big issue where it's jarring? So yeah, this is pretty much how it's looking, and I'm shooting at the Eternal film profile. So yeah, whether I'll grade it or not, all depends. It's great out the camera, or I can actually just push it, you know, add a little bit of a grade to it. Contrast and saturation, as they like. But yeah, there again. f/22 exposure for the sky, then back to me, then it pretty much just, you know, does whatever it needs to do in terms of stepping. So yeah, let's switch it to ISO. Okay, so here's what I've done to this one. I basically exposed for the sky with the base ISO of 160, put the ND filter back on, pretty much applied some ND to it. I've locked the aperture at f/2.8 and the shutter speed is still at 1/48th, which is obviously the 180-degree rule when you're shooting at 24 frames a second. And yeah, just basically seeing how the ISO behaves when it's set to automatic. So yeah, I mean, it's facing me, it seems to be exposing all right, but in terms of the stepping, how does the stepping behave? So back to the sky, you'll see it pretty much go down to the base 160 from what I can see on the screen. And then when I bring it back to me, it exposes and it looks to be hovering around 1600 ISO. So yeah, I don't know, just pretty much, this is obviously version 1.00. Before I do the firmware update, I will go back inside. I'm literally just at the front of my house, just on the bench. This is nothing exciting, but it seems like I might as well get my camera conspiracies on and just see if any of this is being fixed or not. But yeah, man, yeah, do it again. 160, and then back to me. And this is all with the ISO just set to auto, while the shutter speed and the aperture is locked at 1.28 and 1/48. So yeah. Okay, last one for funsies is shutter speed set to auto. So aperture's locked, and obviously the ISO is locked at base 160. Some people like to actually vlog that way, so if you got no ND filter, which the ND filter was off, and yeah, see how the, you know, stepping behaves in terms of if you're just letting the shutter speed just go wild. So apologies if the video just looks a bit weird in terms of motion blur or the lack of motion blur, but I thought let me just add this in for funsies. So again, version 1.00, back to the sky, and you're seeing it around 1/6400, and then when you bring it back to me, as it just steps and exposes, it's around 320 to 500 on the shutter speed. So quite interesting, quite interesting. One more time. Yep, 6400, 1/6400, and yeah, it's around 320. It's around 320. Cool. Hopefully this has helped in some way. I'm gonna go back in and then I'm gonna go back in and do the firmware update to 1.03 and see if the stepping issues have been fixed. All right.
And you've looked after them since.
It's given me great happiness.
But he had to leave them a message they would understand someday.
Right, so as you all should and should have seen that I did the firmware update to the latest one, which is the 1.03. We'll see, there's some in between firmware updates that fix some power issues when you wanted to obviously charge over USB, and also IBIS. So that was, I think, firmware 1.02 where some of the IBIS jitter issues was fixed. So yeah, I've updated it, and right now shutter speed and ISO are locked, and obviously shutter speed is locked to the 1/48, as well as the ISO at base 160. And we're gonna go back to the bench and pretty much just see how the stepping behaves for the aperture first with no ND filter, and literally move it over to how the stepping behaves in the ISO, and then how the stepping behaves in the shutter speed, and that should be pretty much it. So I don't know how long this vlog is going to be, but I hope it's not as long as I think it's going to be. So yeah, we'll point it to the sky like we did before. Should go to f/22, then back to me, and that's for the aperture. I don't know if it's really fixed it or not, but it is what it is, man. I just wanted to test it and see and get the firmware update done. This might be an extreme way to test it, and when it's on me, it's around f5.6, 1/48 at 20 shutter at 24 frames a second, and a base 160 ISO, which is not changing, and the eternal film profile. Looks smoother, but you're gonna have to tell me as we look at the footage and as you guys are watching it as well. So yeah, we'll switch it over to the ISO, put the ISO on auto, and lock the aperture at f2.8, and also the shutter speed at 1/48. So yeah, let's switch up. Right, second test, what I've done is, again, shutter speed is locked at 1/48 because I'm shooting at 24 frames a second. The aperture is now locked at f2.8, which is the widest open, and with the ND filter on, I exposed for the sky at the base ISO of 160, and then once I did that, I just basically you know, put the ISO back up to auto and let the ISO do its thing. So on me it's at 1250 by the looks of it, from what it's hovering at in ISO auto. And then yeah, pretty much seeing how the stepping behaves in the ISO. Then we'll move over to the shutter speed next. So to the sky, and it drops pretty much down to the base 160, and then back to me. Hopefully it should be nice and smooth, or as smooth as possible. To me, it's not really that big of a deal. It wasn't really that big of a deal, but for some people it was. But I was just interested in checking it out, seeing how it behaves with the new firmware update. Fuji didn't really disclaim whether it was an auto ISO step-in fix. It just seemed like a minor fix when recording video. So yeah, we'll do it again. Exposed to the sky, and then back to me. That is pretty much how the auto ISO behaves when the aperture and the shutter speed are locked in place. Let me know if you guys have a much more creative way of testing this out, but it seems, hey, sometimes some tests are just linear, boring, but good to know for the people that want to see. So yeah, man, switch to shutter speed next. Last but not the least, for the 180-degree rule haters out there, shutter speed. So again, aperture's locked, base ISO is locked at 160, aperture's at 2.8, which is the widest open, and we are just letting the shutter speed do its thing. When it's pointed at me, it looks to be around 1/200th, 1/250th, 1/320th. So let's see how that is. One thing I wanted to add was that I've set my zebras at 85% internally in the camera. So yeah, whatever that means in terms of obviously how you see, I'm seeing zebras here, 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 here. So all depends really, it depends. All right, we'll point it to the sky, and the shutter speed pretty much goes up to like 13,200. Back to myself, and it's down to 1/200th. I think autofocus seems to be okay, but this is not an AF test. This is a firmware 1.03 to see if it has fixed the exposure stepping issue or made it smoother in some way. And again, so yeah, this is pretty much the last one with the firmware update completed. So guys, that is it, man. Let me know, let's have a discussion in the comment section below. Let me see what you guys think of it. You know, personally, like I said, I don't necessarily see it that much as a big deal, but let me know if there's a different creative way that you would have done this test, if there was a different way. But I just did it. I wanted to get it out of the way, done quickly, so I could do the firmware update and just enjoy whatever improvements came with, you know, the XT4. And shout out to Fuji, man, you lot do well with the firmware update. So keep listening, keep making sure that we're getting the best experience possible. All you got to do is just enable ProRes RAW. My Ninja 5, my Ninja V is waiting for that, man. GFX 100 has got it. This is more than powerful enough. Give us ProRes RAW externally. That's all I'm waiting for. Please, Fuji. Alright, man, shout out to everyone. If you enjoy content like this, you know exactly what to do, man. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you're part of Team TLS. Don't miss any content that is coming fresh off the press into your inbox. Hope you guys are doing well. That is it for me, Ben from Lover of Tech, signing out.